So I have a question for you, Ryan.
Yes, you
Right.
have a question for me. Perhaps I have an answer. I don't know.
Well, I have a question for you, but it's also a question for the whole audience too.
Is
But
it
have you
multiple choice? I prefer multiple choice questions.
no, although it could be a yes no question. It could be considered a yes
True.
no question.
The
Um,
close, the sister of the true false question, the yes no question.
yeah.
Yes.
So
False. True.
have you ever considered giving up on specifically Instagram and Facebook and just completely deleting your account and sourcing business from other sources?
Considered is an interesting word. I've thought about it.
Yeah.
And it's certainly like many people, I think I've gone through phases where I've done a lot less social media. Like I didn't post on Instagram for all of January.
Hmm.
Um, and that was a conscious decision, right? So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I've thought about it. I haven't really considered it though.
Yeah.
What about
Well,
you?
I've definitely um, considered it or thought about it, but then quickly been like, that's crazy. Because I think that, it gives you so much exposure and, it allows you to create community and get your stuff out there that otherwise would be maybe a little bit more difficult. But yesterday I was listening to Mark Grove's podcast. He's a big Instagram dude. He's got like 1 million followers, and he's announced that he's deleting Instagram and Facebook as of June 1st of this year. And he went on to explain, the reason behind that. And he brought up a lot of like interesting points and a lot of interesting questions that I hadn't really considered before. But one of the questions that he asked at the very beginning was, who are you without social media, specifically social media being meta, like Instagram and Facebook? And this
Yeah.
is a question that his like strategic marketing person or something asked him. And he was like feeling super, super burnt out by 8 years of grinding away on social media, posting like 1 to 3 pieces of content every day for 8 years, basically. And he was just like pretty much done with it. And he was like, how sad is it for me to think like, who am I without Instagram and Facebook? And that got me thinking like, we kind of have got to this place in our culture where who we are is based on how many followers we have or how big our social media community is or how much clout we have, right, in the social media world. Like
Yep.
that's usually one of the first things that people are going to like look at, right, to see like how worthy you are. But could you not be worthy without an Instagram or Facebook following, right?
No,
I would
you
argue we
can't.
all are.
You can't be worthy without an Instagram and Facebook. You need both.
Yeah.
Both. Unquote. Um, yeah, I mean, I think of course. I think everybody could agree you don't need social media,
Yeah.
need Instagram or Facebook. There are a couple of tools that happen to be highly effective for connecting with other people.
Yeah.
Hence, I mean, it sort of reminds me like, people that poo-poo pop culture, pop music. It's popular because a lot of people like it, right? Social media is
Yeah.
popular because a lot of people like it, right? But by no means does that mean you have to listen to pop music just because a lot of other people like it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of anytime something's big, anytime something's popular, there's going to be dissent,
Yeah.
right? The most popular bands in the world have more haters than anybody else. The most popular means of communication in the world have critics, right? Just like
Yeah.
television did, just like newspapers did, just like books did. Um, and I'm not implying that the criticism is wrong Well, right. I'm just saying that, it kind of makes sense. So I get Mark's point, Mark Groves, I get what he's
Yeah.
saying. There's also a lot of pushback against Instagram and Facebook specifically because they're owned by Meta,
Yeah.
which is run by Zuckerberg and his peers, colleagues, cronies, call them what you will. And a lot of people have real objections to Meta and or Zuckerberg's philosophies and or politics. I
Yeah.
get that perspective too. There's a lot of sides to this equation, but I mean, from a coaching and entrepreneurship perspective, can we have a successful business and a happy business life without them? The answer is yes. Spoiler, the answer is yes. Right? Um, but is that the right choice for everybody?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he,
there
and
you
he
go.
was and he was very deliberate with the way he was talking about it. Like he was like, I'm in no way poo-pooing Meta or, being the victim here and saying, because he was also kind of like relating Instagram and Facebook to like an abusive relationship because of the algorithm and how they're always changing everything and how they've engineered it to keep people on the platform. So even if you're, getting people to go off the platform, then you're being kind of penalized for that because they don't
Mhm.
they don't actually want you going to the link in bio because that takes you off of Instagram or it takes you off of Facebook. And so then there's like no remuneration or like reciprocity when it comes to Facebook and Instagram because they just want you to stay on the platform. And um, there was also like a whole conversation around like censorship and how like if you say anything that's against their policies, then you get shadow banned or you get canceled or you know, your whole account gets shut down, right? He was basically talking like, I don't want to be in a relationship like that anymore. Like I don't want to be in a place where I feel like I have to silence myself or, not fully express what I want to express.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, there was like parts of me where I was like, yeah, Mark, I'm with you. I'm deleting Instagram. I'm out of here. But then there was also bits of me that were just like, well, maybe I could just revisit my relationship with the platforms, right? And, I can limit how much I'm consuming and only use it as like a creation thing. My brain started working on all these things. And also on the flip side of it too, like he's got 1.1 million followers on Instagram, but he's got a very established business, right? So a he's got a YouTube channel, he has a podcast, he does live events on a regular basis. He's got a probably, I'm assuming, a pretty big email list. So for him to say, I'm deleting Instagram, pretty easy because he's got all of these other spots to go
Yeah.
strategically, you know what I mean, to keep his business going. And that was the other thing that he said too in this kind of like tell all was it's like leaving an abusive relationship. If you're in a relationship where say you're financially dependent on your partner, you don't just leave, right? You build a strategy to make the exit. So
Yeah.
like how are you going to make money? How are you going to, earn an income? Are you going to do this? Are you going to like all of these things? And it's the same thing. Like he's kind of saying the same thing. If you're going to decide to exit, you know, the exposure that you get from Instagram and Facebook, you need an exit plan. You need a strategy that goes along with it. So you can't just like up and delete it. Which is also why he's probably not deleting his until June, right? He's like building this momentum so
Yeah.
that there's going to be other places for people to find him.
Yeah. Couple of things. Couple of things. I had never heard of this Mark Groves guy until you mentioned him today.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it's an interesting um, way to present an argument. To first say I'm not poo-pooing something and then to make numerous comparisons of that thing to something that is obviously wrong, like abuse, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not poo-pooing him. I'm just saying it's interesting to be like, oh, to each their own, nothing wrong with this thing. It just reminds me of an abusive partner and it's horrible. Right? I'm just pointing out that's
Yeah.
linguistically interesting to me. Um, but again, not necessarily like I see the simile. I see the
Yeah.
similarity here. I get it. Yeah. Um, but yeah, that point is true. Like, yeah, if your main source of revenue is from clients that are finding you on social media, probably you don't want to just delete your social media presence and disappear, because you might just turn off your revenue, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I was telling you this before we hit record, and we've talked in the past about the difference between a therapist or a hypnotherapist and a coach.
Yeah.
And these, of course, are general differences. This is not universal truths. But, my observation is that people who identify as like a coach, especially if they're a business coach or a life coach or a performance coach, they tend to thrive a little bit more on social media than somebody who identifies as a therapist or a hypnotherapist or, somebody that's more like session work kind of person versus coaching work kind of person. And so I think there's probably a lot of people that are going to listen to this episode and say, first opportunity I got, I'm leaving social media. And what I told you before we record was just, as I do I have a free Facebook group for hypnotherapists and coaches and people like that to learn how to attract clients more. I put a little post in there saying, hey, everyone, I'm putting together a resource. It's going to be a mini training in PDF on my top 3 ways to get clients without using social media. And it's shaping up to be the most popular resource I've ever announced in the group. Right now, 2 days after posting that one post, which is just one sentence, I've already had 118 people opt in asking for it, right? Which is a lot. Um, and I think there is a large number of people who, whether they just don't like it or they have values level objections to it, don't see social media as the way they want to be conducting their business and are waiting for an alternative, a viable alternative, right?
Yeah. I wanted to bring this topic to the podcast to discuss because I think it's interesting. And I'm not planning on deleting my Instagram or my Facebook,
Oh, you didn't
but
want it? I already did it for you. I assume that's what you wanted. So I just went ahead and deleted all of your social media accounts ever. Somehow I
yeah,
did that. Yeah.
somehow you got in there.
Yeah.
But what I am going to do, and actually this is something I've been talking about recently to just people in general and like other people that I've been working with is I want to put more of a effort into podcasting and YouTube on top of my social media. And and that just means that I just have to rejig kind of like where I'm putting my efforts because I think that, well, we've talked about that. I mean, we're doing our podcasting class tomorrow, but there's a lot of value in also having a podcast, right? Because it's your own entity, like it's your own thing. It's not ruled by an algorithm or owned by anyone else. It's like you own it and you can put whatever you want up there and talk about whatever you want. And that's your thing. Same thing with YouTube. Like, even though I know there's an algorithm with YouTube, like it's still your channel, right? Like it's very different than like putting up content on Instagram and Facebook. So I think just having this discussion and listening to this whole thing that Mark Groves has brought up has just made me reevaluate where I want to put my effort. And like, do I want to put a little bit more effort into like actually starting and being consistent with like a YouTube channel where I could put my meditations and hypnosis stuff up there, or maybe little trainings, rather than putting like all my eggs in like the Facebook, Instagram basket, which is basically what I've been doing. Like, yes, we're podcasting, but like for the most part, I'm all in on Instagram and Facebook. And maybe
Yeah.
I don't want to be. Like, it's made me question how much more content do I want to fill in there?
Yeah. And also, I mean, there's different way. We probably should have defined social media a little bit at the beginning of this episode, but that ship has
Yeah.
sailed. There's also different ways to be on social media and not be on social media. Because, like, in my mind, even like, let's talk about Facebook for a second. There's
Mhm.
Facebook, but you're not just like on Facebook or not on Facebook, right? There are many different degrees of being on Facebook. You could be somebody who's on Facebook and posts lots of content on Facebook, and you're a
Mhm.
content producer on Facebook. You could be somebody who's on Facebook and utilizes the DM function to communicate with many people on Facebook. You
Yeah.
could be somebody who's on Facebook and utilizes Facebook ads to reach a new audience. And then there's a bunch of other different ways to be on Facebook, and and everybody's some combination of these, right? And I think, you know, a lot of where the objections lie is in that first one of being a content producer on a social media platform like Facebook and the pressures
Mhm.
of producing content and producing quality content and engaging with people via content and being at the mercy of an algorithm that may or may not drive traffic to your content, regardless
Yeah.
of how good or not good it is.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's where a lot of kind of the stress and the difficulty and like trying to market a business via content on social media is extremely challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of things, it's like, you know, the Facebook ads ecosystem, a lot of people are still mystified by it, but I'll tell you, it's given people access to advertising at a level that was never available in the past,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, pre-social media and pre-internet advertising was a totally different monster than post-internet advertising. And it was, and in the past, it was like, it was just inaccessible to so many more people. And now, like, you can be
Yeah.
like
Anyone
Nana's
can.
Knitting Club and, put $20 in a Facebook ad and get, 5 or 10 new Nanas in your knitting club, right?
Yeah.
Um, which I think is great. I think that's great for those that want to embrace it. I'm not saying you have to, but so
Exactly. It is a choice. It's a
there's a
choice.
lot of nuance.
Totally. You know, and at the end of the day, you choose to post content like whenever you want. Like no one is telling you either like how much content you need to be posting. But I will say it does like it does feel like this never ending like um at least from my experience, it does feel like this never ending race that it like where you're just like never enough. Like it's never
Yeah.
enough. Like you can always just keep feeding the beast more and more. Right.
Yeah.
And I really like I've been on social media with both of my business, like my fabric business and then now with coaching for the last 10 years. And I've been like showing up online pretty much consistently every day for 10 years. And I had never felt burnt out. But when I exploded on Instagram in November or whenever that was, December, and gained like 60,000 new followers pretty much, over a couple of weeks, um, that burnt me out. That
Yeah.
really
Eh?
burnt me out because I was so invested in that growth and then wanting to continue to feed the beast and get, more likes and more direct messages and more follows and all that stuff. I didn't realize, like, I just got back from holiday and I didn't realize how burnt out I was until I was away on holiday with my family. And I was like, wow, because I'd stopped. And I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to have fun and go snowboarding and hang out and like not worry about posting too much content. And it wasn't until that moment that I was like, wow, I've been like, um, so stressed out and like high strung about creating content. I didn't even notice it.
Wow.
Yeah. And now I'm kind of like, so it was interesting to come back from holiday and then like this whole thing with Mark Groves. And then I watched this YouTube and then I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't need this. It is an abusive relationship. I am feeling burnt out and like it's never enough. And
Yeah. I think, as we get closer to kind of wrapping up the episode here, I think, I like to think of the average person who's a coach or business owner or whatever, right? Because this podcast is not really just for like general public. This is for
Mhm.
like people who are
Yeah.
entrepreneurs online, right? And I think the natural progression is you start on social media for your marketing and having your presence, and you really hustle to get your first clients and grow your business to the first one or two milestones, right?
Hmm.
Um, because that's a great way to get started, right? You can get feedback, you can see what works, what messaging works, what doesn't. You can connect with lots of people for a low or no money, low
Hmm.
amount of money, no money at all. Um, and I think for some people, that's going to be their marketing and business strategy and online presence permanently. But for other people, and probably for most people, I think once you um, pass the first couple of milestones in business, it's time for your social media to be less the workhorse that does everything from discoverability, client attraction, nurturing, like all these things. You need to transition it to just this is like here, I'm documenting my business journey because I've set up systems to automate or systemize client attraction. I've set up systems to automate or systemize nurturing leads, et cetera, et cetera. Because it really is, if you're trying to do all of that just through social media content, and we're moving away now from some of the kind of like philosophical conversation that Mark was bringing up, and I'm talking about business now. Um, it almost feels unsustainable, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing everything through content, all the steps of the client journey, you're trying to handle it through content.
Yeah.
It's like trying to build a house with just two tools, a hammer and a saw. Yeah, you could do it. But if you're building a new house every month, eventually you want to like, get a table saw and some other tools and get some prefab parts and get some more people on your team, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think
But Does
that's,
that make does that make sense what I just said, Lana?
yeah, it totally makes sense. But, and what it makes me think of though is sort of like, because there is this whole movement around like organic marketing, right? Where you don't have the funnel or you don't have the system set up, right? Like you're just growing your business through organic marketing. And, I'm wondering, is that a bit of a facade, right? Like, I can think of a couple of specific coaches, that I'm thinking about right now who claim that they're making all like millions of dollars and they're just using Instagram. Is that
I think
true?
it's possible. I think it's
Yeah.
possible, but I don't think it's the most efficient way.
No, I don't think it is either.
And
And
I don't think it'll work for everybody.
no, it probably can work for, a few people. But the other thing that I was thinking when you were talking about that too, is it, you know, yes, you start off with the client attraction thing and, building the community and putting yourself out there. But once you've sort of like created a bit of a foundation for yourself and you have those systems in place, it always comes back to authenticity, which we've talked about a couple of times already. But I think it's just like, how are you using the platform that serves like you and like your goals and all that stuff? Like, do you know what I mean? Or do you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about? It's just like, how are you using it to align with like your values and the way you're seeing your business grow and develop? And like, how are you putting yourself out there and um connecting with people so that it's like true to you and you're not like putting on a show or an act or like,
Yeah.
I think after watching this thing with Mark Groves and after digesting all of this information, I'm seeing social media from a different perspective now or something. And it just became so obvious to me the people who are putting on a show versus the people who are authentically just showing up to be like, here, this is me. and this is the content I'm producing to, I don't know, share with you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I get it. I get it. I get what
Yeah.
you're saying. You're throwing a little shade. A little. It's
Little.
okay. A
Yeah.
little.
I'm just
Um,
like, just be authentic. Like,
yeah.
like I almost want to just unfollow a bunch of people that I just like can't now that I have this different like when you like have a different perspective, you just can't unsee some things. So now I'm just like, oh,
Um,
I don't I don't want to watch that anymore.
yeah. Yeah. I do know what you mean.
So
Um, yeah.
something to keep in mind. And another thing too that he talked about was like how can you build safety into like this guy's a therapist. I think his background is therapy too.
Yeah.
So, he's not really, I think he is a coach now, but I think his background is in relationship therapy. Um, but he was talking about how you can build strategies to create safety when you're navigating, these platforms,
Yeah.
right?
Um,
Like safety for just yourself and your own like nervous system.
yeah. I think the last thing to mention is, again, from a business standpoint, remember the attention and the followers and the traffic that you have on social media, you don't technically own it,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
platform owns it.
Yeah.
So that is another tick in Mark's column of like building a business based 100% on social media traffic is inherently risky because these platforms are unpredictable, the algorithms are unpredictable. Occasionally people lose their accounts for various reasons that are either their fault or the platform's fault or a combination of both or neither.
Yeah.
um, and so an example of traffic that you own is like your email list, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if your email provider closes your account. As long as you've backed up your email list, you can take that list to a different email provider and resume sending contact to those people,
Yep.
right? You own that contact information. Your follower list on, let's say Instagram, for example, your account gets shut down. It doesn't matter if you have the list um, saved. You can't just open a new Instagram account and import that list and have all those followers back. It
Yeah.
doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So there are advantages, right, to kind of the off social media game
Yeah.
as
Well, I
well.
think just that like diversify, where you're showing up, like,
I think we should do a whole other episode on that,
yeah.
on just like, what's the stuff we can do to build our business that doesn't involve social media. I think people would like that.
Yeah. Let's do that. I think that's
Yeah,
important. Start
but
a
they got to pay
podcast.
for that episode. You have to send a money order for £7 to Ryan Montes, care of my office, PO Box. Anyways,
Yeah.
no, it'll be one of the free episodes.
But wasn't there like a whole thing? I think when I was away, there was like a whole thing about TikTok getting shut down or something like that, or banned in Canada or North America. Was that a thing? Because I feel like I heard grumblings of like TikTok's going to get shut down.
That's
Did you
no,
hear
you're thinking of tic tac toe. They're gonna ban tic tac toe um, worldwide
that?
because of all the stubbed toe and finger injuries, epidemic levels. Yeah, the U.S. Senate or something voted to potentially ban TikTok in the United States. I don't think it's actually
Oh, the United States. Okay.
been signed into law yet. Um, and then because of that, then the news in Canada was saying, oh, Canada is going to follow suit. I don't think anything has actually happened yet, but they've been
Yeah.
talking about that for years. They've been talking about
Yeah.
that for banning TikTok for years and Chinese spies and these different things. Like, all right, if you're going to
Yeah.
ban it. If not,
Yeah.
shushy, you
Stop
know?
talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
All
So I guess
right.
that's
Well,
it.
that's
So
it.
watch out for that episode where we'll tell you, exciting strategies like just going around your neighborhood and knocking on doors, leaving flyers underneath windshield wipers that talk about your business and other ways to attract clients without using social media. That was a joke. There's much better ways than that, but I don't know. Anyways,
Okay. Good.
cool. All
Well, on that
right.
note, follow us on Instagram at It's the No Excuses
Best
podcast.
way to get a hold of us,
Yeah.
Instagram. Instagram and Facebook for sure. Join my free group on Facebook. It's awesome.
Yeah. All
Got a
right.
DM, got a link. Okay, that's it. Bye,
That's
everyone.
it. Bye.
Ciao.